Well, one thing I wanted to get into first and foremost is you talk about well, something that was interesting is you talked about you had a music career at one point, or you
Yeah,
talked about music a little bit.
yeah, it's something I don't really. One thing I've learned about being in lifting is like if you bring anything from your personal life into that world, people can't always process it, right? So I kind of leave my music side of things out of things. As my YouTube channel was growing, there were years where I was playing 40, 50, 70 shows and just dragging ass, every morning,
Mm,
but still having to hit the gym. So
wow.
yeah, I scratched and clawed for a while. Got to open for a few independent artists. Got to tour around just mildly. I got as far as Canada, but realized there's not a lot of room for a guy that looks like a little Incredible Hulk that's 50 years old. Right?
Yeah,
I
yeah, yeah.
don't fit in well.
That's funny. I actually toured in a band as well. That's why I brought it up. I find it interesting. There's a few people that I've found in the fitness industry that kind of moved over from music, and that's kind of a unique, random crossover.
Yeah, man. I mean, I'm not sure, how connected you are with like the indie music scene,
Yeah.
but you'll have some flower dress girl with purple hair up there, and not,
Yep.
I'm not putting her down. She is what she is, right? But talking, singing her songs about whatever and sunshines and rainbows, and then like I get up there and wherever I go, it's really weird. People kind of like, "Hey, man, you look like the Rock, or not the Rock, like Stone Cold or Triple H, kind of my look." And I don't think people always knew what to expect.
hmm Is music still quite a big part of your life now, or is it kind of
Um,
some?
it was until COVID hit, and then COVID was like, they shut my wife's business down, and all
Mhm.
of a sudden I had all my clients lose gyms. So I'm like, shit, I thought I was going to, lose my training business. So I started working harder and harder and
Oh
just
yeah.
left the music thing behind.
No, absolutely. That makes sense. Yeah, the COVID thing that definitely changed things up for a lot of people. I guess you were training people from home, which is good, but a lot of people that were working in gyms kind of got screwed over. I was working in a gym and I lost my job 3 times in Canada, so I was like, "Okay, fuck this." It was pretty wild.
I don't even the mental stress and strain it put on me. I mean, I was training for a 96-hour run, and
Mhm.
it's just we just got back from Scotland when COVID hit, and I was ready to go. I was ready to go for this 96-hour run. We were 2 months away. Let's roll. And it hit and just completely derailed us, not just physically but mentally.
Absolutely. Yeah, that one thing I actually want to get into talking about running is, you actually talk about it quite a bit. Like you incorporate a lot of cardio and hiking, and you seem to encourage that. When some people in the powerlifting bodybuilding space tend to shy away from cardio or kind of even demonize it to a certain extent. I know that when I was, first learning about bodybuilding, it seemed like, oh, if you did cardio, all your gains are going to melt away. And there's a bit of
Right.
that idea.
Well, I came from that world, back in I got into lifting in 1986. And back then, I had to eat every 2.5 hours. I had to get my 8 hours of sleep. It sounds ridiculous, but even when I was resting on the couch, if I favored one leg over the other in a position, I would move around. It sounds absolutely ridiculous, but that's the degree of paranoia in the world I came from. And running, you know, people assume once you have muscle, it's really hard to lose if you keep training. And I'm living proof of that, man. I mean, I was running 12 to 13 hours a week on average for 3 years and basically doing maintenance lifting. And I had COVID at the beginning of this year, but my strength levels are, you know, I'm slowly moving back up, but everything feels light, even after my age and dealing with COVID and not lifting much the past 3 years as
Mhm.
much.
Yeah, I personally haven't found much interference between running and lifting. It seems like if anything, they complement each other. I was worried about, my like knees getting kind of stressed or, like a little bit of wear and tear on the knees, but I haven't had issues. And I personally just try to run on grass. You talk about trail running. I
Right.
I prefer that. It feels a lot better on the joints.
Yeah, it's a lot easier on the joints. And one thing I found, my weight fluctuated between 238 and upwards of 274, depending on where I was in the journey. And because of my lifting background, I found I never got injured. My tendons and connective tissue and everything were strong to the point where everyone's like, "You're going to get injured. You're going to get injured running that big." And I'm like, man, I've never had any injuries at all.
That the fear mongering around certain things in fitness is something that I have a big problem with, because you talk about you coming from what you were taught back in the day, and you were kind of paranoid about certain things. And I feel like a lot of people in the fitness industry kind of promote that paranoia. This is bad, that's bad, this exercise, don't do this. There's a lot of that. And what are your thoughts on that? Like this whole like fragility mindset around training. Do you think?
Well, number one, the body's not that fragile.
Yeah.
The mind is more fragile than the body, and we can talk about that if you want. But the body is not that fragile. There's also the aspect that controversy creates cash. So
Yeah.
and there's also a degree of ignorance. I see, like, and a lack of common sense, like the paranoia around upright rows. As a coach, look, every injury, or the paranoia around leg extensions. Or I heard somebody mention to me the other day, like athlete, and I don't know if this is true, okay, but they said Athlete X says dumbbell rows give you hernias, and I don't know what the context was, right? But in all my years, I've never, like, even if somebody does get a hernia, who knows what triggered the hernia? Like,
Yeah.
it was the
So random.
dumbbell, right? So I don't know, man. I mean, the fear. There's so many dimensions to fear: ignorance and cash, and lack of common sense. And that's always been my place, is just trying to keep people on a level, sane plane.
Hmm. Yeah, I have noticed that there's been certain people who have come out, and their marketing plan is just to be a little bit, uh, you know, be a contrarian or just like push back. When I'm starting to notice that usually the true advice, or the true, um, how would you put it? Just the people that are like speaking the truth are usually people that kind of share a lot of the common ideas in the lifting space.
Yeah, getting into coaching, some of the things I believed evolved. I hate to say changed, but like squats. Squats always. I never had an issue with squat form. It was just always squat form, and do your squats, and all things are good. But when I got into coaching, I really realized how many people, struggle with the squat more than anything else. When
Mm.
I was coaching powerlifting, people would come to me and they already were hitting depth, right? So we were just, doing a lot of programming. But coaching taught me that, it evolved my thinking a little bit. Like squats, I don't try to be a contrarian now, but I tell people, man, there's not a lot of people getting a lot of, there's not a lot of people getting as much out of squats as they could. And then when we have this focus on these minimal 5x5 programs where you're squatting 3 times a week, that's fine if your squat doesn't suck, right?
What would you like when you say they're not getting enough out of a squat? Why is that? What specific form issue?
There's a lot of common form issues. One of it, you see people thinking there's one way to squat, so the default is a wider stance than they should be, and they automatically default to low bar, which I have nothing against low bar, but we need to kind of adjust things based on you before we decide that low bar is the best place to start. So usually a wider stance, people not keeping their knees out, they develop really bad habits. And those are the biggest two things, trying to get somebody to, the biggest thing I say day in and day out in coaching is open your legs, open your knees, open your knees, open your knees, because they're just hanging them high. and just not getting depth and not
Mhm.
just not a quality clean squat.
Mhm. What are your thoughts around, like using maybe you're a guy who's focused strictly on hypertrophy and you're using, like a back squat, but you're like elevating your heels to make it more quad bias. So you're still, you're doing these lifts, but you're kind of, you know, manipulating them in a way so that they just focus on certain tissues. Cause I know a lot of people talk about that.
Um, I mean, I am a I'm not against that for someone who has a basic mastery of the squat. If they want to play around with heel elevation, and they're kind of already in a good place, then go for it.
Mm.
You're an adult and you can assess what's going to work for you. But when somebody doesn't have that down and they start to worry too much about, squat shoes or heel elevation, that sort of thing,
Mm.
yeah, that's a little backwards.
Mhm. One person that I was really into and I learned a lot from was Paul Carter. That's actually how I discovered you. I know you did a podcast with him. Not sure how long ago that was. Maybe probably over a year, maybe even 2 years now. Um, a lot of the stuff he wasn't necessarily demonizing barbell lifts, but he was saying like these aren't necessarily the best options. And there's a bit of a push and pull in this area where it comes to, the barbell cult versus, people that are more hypertrophy, or I guess you could call it like biomechanics focused, which is
Right.
kind of that's an interesting thing. But I'm, I kind of shied away from doing conventional deadlifts because I thought to myself, oh, well, these guys are telling me these aren't necessarily the best for hypertrophy or whatever. And I kind of I was switching to things that these guys were telling me were more hypertrophy focused. But what do you think of that? Like now I'm getting to a point where I've learned from Alpha Destiny, Jeffrey Verity Schofield, where you actually should be doing these barbell lifts, but not just sticking to them. You talk about that. Don't just do these minimal programs, but there's the balance between, hitting the machines and doing the barbell lifts.
Well, the place I've been for probably 20 years now, I've been fortunate enough to have science actually, back nearly everything I say. And that might sound like me just being an egotistical bastard, but it's just kind of like, my life experience. This is what I believed. And um, back in the day, I actually had a website called Cult of Barbell. I'm not even kidding. I back when I started a website when I lost my job in like 2005, 2006 called Muscle and Brawn. It developed into something that was competing for the website of the year with bodybuilding.com. And back then, I didn't know if Muscle and Brawn was going to take off. So I had all these other little periphery websites. One of them was Cult of Barbell.
Mm.
So, um, man, I'm very big into the barbell lifts, but I'm very big into building strength from head to toe using every method. I don't think the average lifter needs to worry as much about weakness training as they do about making everything strong.
Mm.
Uh, you know, then during in that process, you'll find out about weaknesses. Um, Dumbbells are great for hypertrophy. Machines are great for hypertrophy, and we've almost lost our collective minds in the way we train. We don't have off seasons. We don't have building seasons. And recently, we had a meta-analysis of uh, powerlifting, where the strongest powerlifters tended to were exactly the biggest powerlifters muscle wise.
Yeah, I saw that.
So that's in line with what I've seen in the real world. I was with Muscle and Strength, man. I used to get to travel around and video, Mr. North Carolina, Mr. Minnesota, Stu Yellen from T Nation, everybody, man. These guys were stronger than me, and they're bodybuilders. So,
Mhm.
I mean, from what I've seen, the strongest guys that I know have well-rounded programs. Simple as
Mhm.
even like the Lilla Bridges. I mean, they crush volume. They crush. They might use a different exercise selection, but man, I don't think I could survive their programs.
Shit. Yeah, I think it's a little bit contrived to like try to like distinguish between strength and hypertrophy, you know, to this like extreme degree where it's, you know, you don't want to, I don't know. When I think of strength training, well, this is something that always kind of confused me as someone who's not like, you know, super versed
Right.
in this. You know, if I'm getting strong in a certain rep range, say it's like 8 to 12 reps. So if I'm getting in strong in that rep range, I'm still getting strong, but I'm not necessarily training like a power lifter doing 1 rep maxes or, you know, doing 1 to 3 reps.
Yeah, well, that's the power lifter who is at 90% already. You know, once you get to your 90% strength, and I'm tossing that out as not a rule, but just kind of a general concept where, you know, we can base a discussion on. You know, they have a lot of strength already, so they have to start trying new things because strength and muscle building are different, in the sense that strength, you know, you have limb lengths, you have leverages, you have form,
Mhm.
and you have different, you know, the body will respond to different variables, bands, chains, exercise variations. So, you know, it's pretty much the same thing through 90% of your training.
Mhm. No, that makes sense. And, you know, using, you know, as a power lifter, you're probably wanting to leverage your form and leverage all these things to make the lift easier to hit whatever your goal weight or goal weight is. But as a bodybuilder, you're trying to like make lifts as hard, almost like as hard as possible, or to make them, you know, more stimulating.
Yeah, and in my world, man, I mean, you know, I didn't even know what powerlifting was till 2007. You know, I've been 20 years into it, and people kind of know me as a power lifter, but I'm more of an accidental power lifter.
Mm.
You know, I just kind of stumbled upon it, and in the real world, you know, people watching you, people watching me, they're not power lifters or bodybuilders. They're just trying to get up to where, you know, they're trying to get in the shadow of the people that they see.
Yeah, they're just normal people just trying to get jacked, you know, just live a normal life, but also just see what they can do with their bodies
Yeah,
for
and
the
all the
most part.
bullshit and nonsense and overcomplication, it isn't helping them at all. It really isn't. You
Hmm.
know, discussions of bodybuilders and power lifters, you know, that doesn't help them much, you know, at all either.
No, that's fair. And even just you know, I follow a lot of these guys that are kind of more like brainy, like they get into like the deep science of like RPE, RIR, and all this stuff. And I find that I prefer the guys that just kind of simplify it, you know, just almost more like caveman training a little bit.
Yeah, well, you know, for me, it's always been, you know, mentioning Paul Carter. He posted maybe a few months back that lifting is not therapy, and I, you know, I respectfully disagree with Paul. Like for me, when I was in my zone, I felt like throwing barbells through walls and just letting all the pain, pain of life, everything out,
Yeah.
man. I mean, just letting it out. So yeah,
Hmm. Yeah, maybe we could jump into like the mental aspects of it because you talk a lot about, you know, fuck your feelings. And I think there's a part of me that for someone like me who's super into lifting, there might be I actually have to be disciplined about taking rest days. I'm not saying that to brag or be like, look at me, I'm super disciplined, but I genuinely today in particular, I need to take a rest day for sure, but I want to hit the gym. And there's a probably a balance between, you know, fuck your feelings, work hard, you know, David Goggins type mindset, Jocko Willink type mindset versus, hey, you should probably rest so you don't snap your shit up.
I would rather work with someone who wants to run through a mountain every day, like
Yeah.
literally just run because you can temper that horse, hopefully
Yeah.
before it gets injured, as opposed to the guy that's over analyzing everything and, you know, just you wonder sometimes if they're ever going to develop the mental strength just to shut the fuck up and do the work. You know,
Mhm.
I mean, it sounds I hate to put it like that, but you know, I've been doing this for 20 years, man, and there's a lot of people that really need bigger, juicier testicles. They just need to start just I'm gonna push myself no matter, you know, I'm gonna throw some caution to the wind today.
Yeah. or even just pushing through very challenging sets. I remember, I really started to get into more higher intensity training and pushing myself to failure. And I remember a particular day, this was about maybe a year and a half ago now, and I was just doing a leg press set. And I was like, hey, this is a safe movement. I'm going to really try to push myself to failure on this. And from where I was, like where my training log was, compared to me like actually putting in the mental, like just pushing through every mental excuse and, oh, it hurts, so I'm going to stop. My actual, like how far I could actually push it was so beyond what I had in my training log. And
Right.
I realized if you can push through that mental block, we underestimate how, like, we think we're close to failure when we're really 6 to 7 reps away.
Yeah, I'll tell you, nothing educated me more about that than starting to train with people after about 15 years. After about 3 years of training, I was probably at 90% of my strength that I am now. And after about 10 years of training, I was, as strong and as big as I'll ever get. But once I started training, like once I got in this world where I was doing YouTube and when I joined Muscle and Strength and Tiger Fitness, um, getting to train with people. For an example, I got to train with a guy named Tony. And if Tony sees this, Tony, I love you, but this is just what happened, and it is what it is, right? But he came to train with me and my wife, at the private Tiger Fitness gym, and we did our benching. And after like the second set of benching, he's like, I can't go on. I'm done. Like, we're gonna do one more. Suck it up, Tony. And then we moved over to dumbbell bench. This is a guy that's been lifting for 50 years, mid 40s, frustrated that he's not getting results, right? So he grabs the 45s. I'm like, come on. I mean, you've been lifting for 50 years. My wife is next to us doing a 10 by 10 on dumbbell benches with 40s. I'm not even kidding you. This is not making fun of people, but
yeah,
like Tony, I said, Tony, grab the 75s. Let's see how many reps you can do. And Tony did 8.
mm-hmm.
Tony had never tried to get past 45 or 50 on dumbbell bench. So things like that, that I learned that I know these guys can do a lot more than they're doing. They just don't believe it or ever try it.
Mm-hmm. Well, I know from my personal experience, I had in my early 20s, I had some back issues. So my low back would just bug me a little bit during certain movements. And for me, it was mostly just a weakness. Like I've worked through that now, and I've overcome that for the most part. Every once in a while it irritates me, but it's nothing crazy. And I know for me, having like this fear mongering around certain movements. And as soon as the bar felt heavy, I was like, oh, this is the rep. It's going to snap my shit up.
Right.
But now I'm at a spot where I'm doing, decently, like I'm, 90-pound dumbbell bench press or whatever. And it feels heavy, and it feels like maybe a little bit unstable. And you should almost have a bit of nervousness before a hard set, like it's a little bit scary. Like you got to push through, and fucking, the injury risk may increase when you're working hard. But I've come to know that you kind of auto regulate like how hard you push, and you kind of start to, as you do this more and more, you start to realize where the limit is, where you're actually potentially going to hurt yourself, and where you're just between like the balance of like potentially hurting yourself and then just being a little bitch. You know what I'm saying? Like you
Right.
gotta find.
Yeah, there are some lifts that are far worse than others as far as the terror factor, like squats. I don't find deadlifts as terrifying as squats, but squats are particularly terrifying. But I'm kind of wired like just shut up and just do it. I mean, I don't like when I get on social media and it sounds like I'm being hard on people or bashing, like push harder, stop being a pussy, stop being so weak. That's inner monologue stuff, stuff I tell myself.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, you wouldn't tell anybody anything that you wouldn't tell yourself, kind of thing.
right. I mean, it's just the way I treat myself. Like, shut up, pussy. Just fucking do it.
Yeah.
Just go out and do it. Like what you're talking about on squats. when I got to my strongest, you know, I'm training on a half, what's called a sumo squat rack in a basement with no spotters. I'm doing like 640 with chains for doubles and stuff like that. And it's terrifying because you know at any moment, just the nature of what you're doing, something could tear or break. I would always, you know, at the time, I would tell my wife, you know, I'm doing a heavy squat, keep the phone handy. Sounds silly,
Yeah.
but it was, man. I mean,
Check
that's
on me.
the fear you have when you get under that weight, you know.
Yeah.
Not everyone has to do that. I mean, that's not a requirement even. Like look at guys like Jeffrey Verity Schofield. He doesn't need to squat, you know, 500 pounds to get
Mhm.
big legs. So that's a whole different game.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's interesting. Have you ever had to work through any kind of injury or anything like that?
Um, I was a machinist back in the day, and I lifted an empty oil barrel and tore my left shoulder. And it took me a year to recover, but I got back to a real close to a 500 bench,
Mm.
and with chains, that is. But I was chasing the all-time over 50 world record in powerlifting, the real world record, not a federation record. And I like to specify that because, you know, in the powerlifting world, everyone has a world record. So I tore my hamstring during I don't know, like a 430-pound warm-up squat, something I've did 1,000 times before. I think the floor was uneven, but that kind of once you tear your hamstring under heavy weight, it took me a long time mentally to recover from it.
Yeah, so maybe you recovered slower mentally than you did physically because like you
Right.
know, probably were a little bit sketched out to put weight on your back again.
Yeah, now I can go squat and I don't even think about it. It's been so
Yeah.
long. But back then, man, I was like, I'm done.
Shit. Yeah. No, I know a few people that have overcome some pretty crazy injuries. I'm not sure. Are you familiar with Bald Omni Man?
Hmm.
Yeah, he broke his back at one point, and now he's, already like doing Romanian deadlifts with like 450 just for reps. And I'm like, wow, some people can really overcome some pretty devastating injuries.
Yeah, I just happened to get that was my only major lifting injury, and I got it, you know, right around age 50. So that's a good time to just kind of cool the jets a little bit.
No, absolutely. One thing that I want to talk about with you too is there's kind of uh this debate in the fitness and YouTube fitness, I guess you could call it. It's like this idea of like training differently as a natural as you would as a person who's enhanced. Do you think that's like a viable way to look at it?
I think I think what we end up doing is like missing the whole point, missing the big picture. Um, Training should have a starting point, and no matter what you do, like program hopping is silly because basically we're just hopping to a different program with the same exercises. And it's like, you know, it's like having your wife put on a wig or girlfriend put on a wig or whatever your deal is. And like, it's the same thing. It's just got a, you know, it's just a different name.
That's awesome.
So, but training evolution, okay. You have a starting point, and then let's say you're in the gym, barbell rows. I don't like 10 rep sets, so I'm going to try 8. Okay. 8 feels better for me. Why? Who gives a fuck, right? Who gives a fuck? But I enjoy it more. There was, I think it was Menno Henselman had a post this morning about hard gainers. And, you know, some people work better at a slightly different rep range. So, you know, let's say you don't like barbell rows, you switch to pendley rows. Training evolution, right? Um, that's that. Like, should a natural train differently than an enhanced athlete? Who gives a fuck? Because wherever you are at point A, it's all about training evolution, right? You don't try to train like Jay Cutler. You don't try to train like Ronnie Coleman. You get into the gym and try to train like you, see what you like, see what you don't like, move some things around, swap into
Mhm.
exercises, get your frequency dialed in, and, you know, set aside that whole silliness, you know.
Mhm. No, that's a good point. I actually have I've been married to push-pull legs for a very long time. And I actually watched one of your videos you put out about a year. I don't know, this might have been a year ago, but it was talking about like your upper lower split. And now I'm starting to think about, oh, I'll change my split. And now I'm like overthinking every little thing. And oh, maybe I should do this. And I'm finding myself in this spot, overcomplicating, overthinking things. And especially when it comes to splits in particular, where I worry about, especially when it comes to push pull legs. I've been doing push pull legs, day off, push pull legs, and kind of sometimes I'll auto regulate days off.
Right.
And now I'm just trying to switch to an upper lower thing, and I'm just having a hard time. It's like I'm like ingrained in this thing, and I'm like, I don't necessarily just want to go back to push pull legs because I'm used to it. I want to try something new, but now I'm in this like chaos of trying to like make a new program.
Yeah, that's kind of what we're talking about with training evolution. Trying
Yeah.
things isn't bad. Trying new things either will reinforce what you like or what we don't like. I hate full body. I would rather impale myself, on a sharp object than do a full body workout. It's just not
Yeah.
my DNA. So, yeah, man, that's important. Liking what you do and having an eye on recovery. How are you recovering? I did push pull legs 3 on 1 off. I tried it 3 years into my lifting. By then, my strength was pretty solid, and it beat the living crap out of me. So I went back to a body part split. But there's you might find in your journey that you find a middle ground, something you really enjoy, or a modification or a tweak, and that's what it's really all about.
Mm-hmm. You know, for most people, if they're training with intensity, they probably don't necessarily need to be going to the gym more than 4 times a week.
Yeah, no, I would like older individuals, 3.5 times a week, or folks that are busy. That's going to be fine. Is it optimal? In air quotes. It's probably 2% less optimal, but over the course of 3, 4, 5 years, it's not going to matter at all.
Mm-hmm.
4 days a week is kind of the sweet spot for getting in all the work you need to get in if you want a well-rounded physique and well-rounded strength. Beyond that, 5 days a week, can you train 5 days a week? Yeah. Could you do 2 on 1 off? Yeah, that's kind of my sweet spot. I find after 2 days, I need a rest. But 6 days a week, I don't know, man.
That's a little wild. One thing you talked about in that upper lower split video from quite a while back was you do chest and shoulders on, say, a Monday, and then Tuesday you do lower, but you actually had back and legs on the same day, which I found kind of interesting.
Yeah, in that type of split, you have to kind of lead with posterior, like legs and back, and then you do chest, arms, and shoulders. You don't want to do your biceps the day before posterior rowing work. But honestly, doing an upper lower, who wants to train just legs twice a week exclusively and then cram everything else into an upper day? It looks fine from a like, let's pull stuff out of our ass type of programming method, but logistically, it's your upper days would be way too brutal and way too long to be productive.
Well, one thing I've noticed personally is I don't like to train more than 4 exercises a workout. And some people will do like 6 exercises in a session. But for me, it's like if I'm giving my all after 4 exercises, I'm pretty much done.
Yeah, that's how it should be. I mean, I do six. Six is but there's a rate of decay. Like after the first two, I need an intensity break. So if I do like deadlifts and dumbbell rows or deadlifts and barbell rows, I need to move on to like a lat pull down or a seated cable row where I'm sitting down and
Yeah.
not as hard. And then you're doing, maybe some curls and crap like that. But yeah, if you don't feel like that after like 3 or 4 exercises, generally it's an indication that you're probably not training hard.
And I try to give, the isolation movements a level of intensity that I don't necessarily, think most, like, I'll see people kind of just, do an overhead tricep extension, but it seems really half-assed. Or
Right.
they kind of they don't take the isolation movement seriously. But I really try to like treat every exercise, with the same level of intensity. But I totally see what you're saying. Like, I can only do 2 compound movements a session. Because if I do, say, I don't know, like right now, for a while I was doing dumbbell bench and weighted dips. And after that, it's like I don't want to do anything else compound. I'll just do like, an isolation movement or something that's a little bit easier that I can not as fatiguing.
Yeah, not as physically and mentally as intense, you know.
Mhm.
When I like if I'm doing deadlifts and dumbbell rows and a workout, it's like 40 minutes before I get into my deadlift working sets just because of all the warm-up sets and plate loading and all the nonsense. And then my dumbbell rows, at my peak, I was doing like 200 for 22 or whatever. I would only do one set because it was just too physically and mentally. By then I needed to move on to like something where I was sitting, like a lat pull down. So,
Yeah. Do you do deadlifts and squats on the same day? Because that's something I've been kind of experimenting with. It's if I'm doing some sort of big posterior chain movement, like I don't know, like some kind of deadlift, I usually, if I'm gonna hit quads that day, do like a very easy quad movement, like a leg extension, or not necessarily easy, but just something that's a little less, like even like leg press or hack squat, rather than doing 2 big barbell movements back to back.
I've done them on the same day. When I was at my strongest, I would alternate between a bench and a posterior day. But what I would do is if I was doing heavy squats, I would do rack pulls or block pulls after, so it wasn't as intense.
Mm,
If I was doing, if I was going to focus on deadlifts, I would do a little bit lighter on the intensity scale on squats. So there's you can do them both. It's certainly not easy,
mm,
and you really have to work out the logistics of how you're going to program them.
no, absolutely. Another thing I wanted to talk about with you was you actually talk when you talk about cutting, you talk about, training the exact same way when you're cutting. You don't want to like all of a sudden switch to higher reps or anything like that. And you also say to get your cut over with as soon as possible. And I've heard like conflicting things about that. Like Lane Norton will talk about, well, this if you cut really slow or slower, you have a better chance of maintaining muscle. And we kind of talked about being paranoid about muscle loss, and I fall into that camp. As soon as I go on a diet, I'm like, oh my muscle's wasting away. I'm gonna
Well,
die.
scientifically, what we know now is it's very difficult to lose muscle mass during a cut unless you stop training. So that's just kind of it's hyper paranoia, and some of it's founded in like cutting for a bodybuilding show.
Mhm.
Uh, so it's paranoia. Plus, look, the reality is, muscle memory is legit. Even if you lose a couple ounces on a cut, it's going to come back.
Yeah.
So regarding lane, like a slow cut, I'm not. This is going to sound like I'm roasting Lane, but this is going to be a coach that coaches a lot of normal average people instead of people cutting for a show. Like you and I, right? Folks like us, if they come to me for coaching, they can pretty much do a long cut because they have the lifestyle changed on. You're not trying to wean them off Doritos and pizza and beer. So they can do that a lot easier.
Mm.
But the average person that comes to me, um, there's so much going on. You're trying to help them rewire their lifestyle. And plus, look, if you're doing like mini cuts, like that's what I kind of advocate, and like what Dr. Mike does, get that shit over with, man. I mean, don't
Yeah.
stress out. I mean, what's the point? Like I try to get my folks to do like a 14 to 20-day cut and then get back in, lose some weight, crush it, and then get back to business. the longer you stretch it out in the real world, the more opportunity there is for somebody to stumble, to have a bad day, to have a stressful day. And,
Yeah.
um, for mini cuts, and it's just the way to go, in my opinion.
And you ended up losing 100 pounds at one point. Is that correct?
Yeah, I don't know if you want the whole long, boring story, but
No, I'll take the long, boring story.
I was at my strongest, right? And I'd kind of taken a break from powerlifting, and I used to compete at the UPA meets in Iowa with the Lillibridges, Paul Carter, Pete Rubish, me and Peter from Wisconsin, all those guys, all the big hitters at the UPA meets, and I went to a meet to coach some people, and I got the bug to compete, and I was pretty depressed at the time, and I was just eating myself in insane strength levels, like over 4 months. I got
Wow.
46. I was on pace for minimum of a 1,900 pound total. That's about where my gym total was. And this was years ago, man, like 6, 7 years ago, before everybody was doing it, before we kind of understood, what what folks do now is ridiculous compared to what they were doing then. But back then, there was only like 82 people that had ever hit a 2,000 pound total in powerlifting, and I was
Wow.
trying to be number 83. And I'd eat myself up in strength to 346. A week before the meet, I was sitting at a Pizza Hut with my daughters on a daughter daddy day, and all of a sudden I got cramps, Charlie horses, in every muscle of my body. Every
Oh my God.
it's You can't explain to people what this feels like. You move a little bit and your chest cramps, your abs cramp, and I could not get up off of the bench. It took me 15 minutes to get to the counter to even pay the bill. And I ended up going into the movie theater with my daughters. I couldn't move for 2 hours. Nearly pissed myself. That's just the honest truth. I couldn't get
Holy.
out of the chair. I thought we were going to have to call the paramedics to get me up, just because the cramps were so brutally, paralytic, I guess. Is the
What
way.
what causes that exactly? Just the excessive weight gain or
Um, my best understanding is fatty liver disease. It was so bad that my liver was not processing minerals, and everything was just a cramping nightmare.
holy.
And I had a buddy who said, "Hey, dude, the heart's a muscle, and you have a heart
Yeah.
attack if you don't get your shit together."
Yeah. Shit.
So basically, long story short, I woke up, and for 2 years I didn't cheat. All I ate was meat, fruits, and vegetables, and I didn't do so. Like, this was before all this stupid,
Keto stuff.
diets, paleo and carnivore and all that kind of stuff. I just removed carbs, other than vegetables, plant based.
Mhm.
I never counted calories. I lost 100 pounds like lightning fast.
Holy shit. Like, did you do that in a year?
Oh, excuse me. It was probably the first 70 pounds was probably the first year, and the next 30 was kind of dialing things in after that.
And did you feel, transitioning out of that, like losing that 100 pounds, did you feel like low mood and just like what was that like losing that much weight? Because I'm a guy who I'm just trying to cut down from 20% to 15%, like that's like very, very minor. But I've noticed like a dip in mood, and like I noticed like, when you get used to eating a certain amount, making that lifestyle change, that transition must have been brutal.
Actually, for me, it was the opposite. It was look, at the time I had such bad sleep apnea, that I was
Mhm.
always tired. And I'm just being honest, you get that heavy, you struggle to wipe your own ass. I mean,
Yeah.
it's just a reality. It sounds crude, but that's just the way it is, man. I mean, and my sleep improved, my mood improved, and I wasn't restricting food at all. I mean, I was not tracking calories or restricting at all. but I was eating 7,000 calories, 8,000 calories before a day. And just the dump
Holy
calories just dumped the weight.
damn. Yeah, that's crazy. And how old are you when you started losing the weight?
40, 46 maybe.
Yeah, because a lot of people like they might feel like if they're at that age and they're super overweight, they might feel like, oh, like that's I can't really get stacked and jacked. And you look at yourself now and it's that transformation is insane. And a lot of people might feel like if they're, over the age of 40 that they can't do something that drastic. But it's crazy that you lost 100 pounds of fat and then created this you know, like you got jacked.
Man, to this day, that was never my goal, right? I was lifting, I lifted forever, like I was 30 years up through then. And um, it was like I did a powerlifting meet when I was at like 266. And then getting down to 238. One day I woke up and I had like veins everywhere. Right.
Maybe that's maybe that's the secret. It's just to bulk up 100 pounds overweight and then on
And
the verge of death.
I was 238 when that happened. And my pumps would be ridiculous. And I would take these photos just because I couldn't believe what I was seeing, right? You can't believe what you look like after you've been staring at a corpse for so long.
Yeah.
But when you lose a lot of weight, you get loose skin. I have loose skin under my armpits and loose skin on my lower belly. Not a lot, but when I say I was 238 and super vascular, people try to frame that in a BMI context, and like I got loose skin, like I'm after surgery, I'm like 223, maybe 220, without the loose skin.
Damn. So did you got surgery to take the loose skin off or?
No, I did not. Not
No.
yet.
No, that
If I get down to 220, I'm going to consider it.
Mhm. One thing I noticed in particular about your physique is your quads. You have massive quads. And did you do a lot of like quad isolation or is it just like big squats?
Dude, man, back in the day, I love Tom Platz. Like I'm a counterculture punk son of a bitch, right?
Oh yeah, I like
Any-
that vibe.
Whatever's popular, I want to see what's not popular because that's where
Yeah.
the cool stuff is. Like, that was my attitude. So back in the day, I was all about Tom Platz, and
Mhm.
I've always worked quads super hard, super
Yeah.
hard. Alan Roberts, Every Damn Day Fitness.
I have watched a few of his videos. Is he a bald gentleman? Like he's pretty aggressive on YouTube too. He's got like a high energy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, he used to come to me before he lost weight, and he made a video once where he couldn't hang with my leg workout. He quit at like the second exercise. And I'm not trying to brag or anything, but that's just kind of the level of intensity I have on legs.
So like what would a typical leg day look like for you? Just out of curiosity.
I would work up to a heavy double, triple, quad, whatever I felt like on the day. I'd work up, based on how I felt. Could be 505 by 5, or 545 for a double or whatever I felt like. Then I would drop down to either 405 or 455 by max safe reps. I would never push for grinders. Then I would drop down to 365 max safe reps, 315 for max safe reps, and occasionally a little bit lower. But I posted a video on Instagram today of 315 by 20. That's like my back off. It's like my third or fourth set. And from there, the leg workout starts. I do leg presses, usually like what I call bulldozer style, which is rest pause. So you do max safe reps, rest 15 seconds, max safe reps. You do that for 5 sets. I would then do usually RDLs, 2 sets of barbell or dumbbell RDLs. If they're dumbbells, usually 150s for 2 sets of 10. If they're dumbbells, usually no more than, or barbell, no more than 400 because I don't really want to load a barbell at that point.
Yeah, it's just annoying at that point. I have that problem. No, I'm just kidding.
No, I would usually do like hack squats, and then I would do like a superset of 100 rep lunges and box jumps, or box jumps supersetted with leg extensions,
Damn.
or something like that, and then leg curls, and I was pretty much done. So
Hmm.
it was my longest day, usually pretty close to 2 hours.
Damn. No, it's crazy. And it's, you were talking about earlier, we were talking about that upper lower split. I'm kind of curious. Like, this is something I'm actually in the middle of. So maybe these will be my selfish questions where I'll just try to get free coaching off of you.
Yeah, no, let it rip.
So for me, you do the upper A, upper B thing. And I was thinking, okay, so I do barbell bench, and then I'm doing a dumbbell overhead press.
Right.
And then I'm jumping into a pec deck, just something that's like an isolation machine movement. And then I'm doing some sort of actually I was doing like a rear delt row just to kind of like with a cable just to do my shoulder. Because you do like the chest shoulder compound and then the chest shoulder machine slash isolation movement. And I'm
Right.
just trying to do those four. That was like my upper day. And then the next day I'm doing the lower day was a little bit more confusing to me because I'm like, okay, so say like what would be a good way to set up your lower body day if you're hitting back and legs on the same day?
Well,
Is that
usually the cornerstones for me, I think of it as like posterior. So you start with a squat day and a deadlift day, right? And if someone doesn't squat or deadlift, then you adjust. Like if they don't deadlift, then you would maybe start with barbell rows or dumbbell rows or whatever. So you have a squat day and a deadlift day. If you start with squats, then I usually do squats and barbell rows to lead
Mhm.
off. If you do deadlifts and leg press, but you can drop leg press and do hack squats. You can drop leg press and do pause squats if you want to squat twice a week. If you don't like barbell rows, you can do dumbbell rows or T-bar rows.
Yeah.
So I would do the two big hitters right out of the gate, and after that, you better pray to your favorite deity because you're probably a little bit tired.
Yeah. So you do like the one big leg movement and then the one big back movement.
Right, and then you kind of go down the intensity chain a little bit.
Yeah. So then you can maybe go to like a seated hamstring curl or something that's easier for legs. Cause I don't think if I did squats and barbell rows, I'd be like pretty much done at that point.
Yeah, well, I have my clients do things like squats, barbell rows, hack squats, seated cable rows. It's not easy. It's not an easy workout. It's
Mhm.
not, but it's a little bit less intense as you move down the ladder.
Mhm. Okay, cool. Yeah, no, that makes sense. No, I'm working on that right now, so that I'm curious about that. Another thing I wanted to get into is I made the mistake of bulk. I wouldn't say I bulked up too quick. Well, maybe I would. Like I got to like 20% body fat, which isn't outrageous, but I was 205, and now I'm dieting back down, mostly because I just want to kind of create a buffer so that I can bulk a little slower. And you actually put out a really good video about that. The problem with fat bulking. I got to the point where I was tracking my protein, but I knew I knew that I was going a little overboard on the calories.
Right.
And the problem with that, which you discussed in the video, is you kind of, I do not want to live in this calorie deficit space. I want to live here for the least amount of time as possible. So if I can bulk in a reasonable calorie surplus for 10 months and then cut for 2 months, that'd be amazing.
Yeah, man, that's my whole game. I have clients do 1.5 pounds to 2 pounds a month gain, and we set like a limit. You hit the 8 pounds and you lose 8 pounds. You gain 8 pounds, you lose 8 pounds, or you gain 8 pounds, you lose 6 pounds.
Mhm.
You're slowly moving up in weight. But they end up being in a calorie surplus about 10.5 pounds out of 10.5 months out of the year, and their body composition stays the same or gets better from a body fat percentage standpoint if they
Mhm.
nail it. That is.
Yeah. One thing that, there's the paranoia for me of, there's a lot of paranoia in this game. I'm a little bit like neurotic about this stuff sometimes, but
Right.
it's like, not eating enough. I almost felt like I got to make sure I'm getting that calorie surplus, throw that extra down the hatch if I need to.
Oh yeah. Look, if I can interject and cut you off, man, I lived in that world for so long. Uh,
Yeah.
I mean, I would over consume, or if I missed my protein, I would eat more calories. And that was, back when I was younger, my metabolism was more forgiving. So, look, what I did was far more aggressive than what I teach. But, I had a rocket fast metabolism. I was always super active. And,
Mhm.
uh, I learned some things. If I had to go over and do it all over again, I would do it the way I teach it.
Yeah. Well, one thing I've been thinking about too is when I was kind of bulking up, and I'm a really skinny guy initially. Like I was underweight, and then I bulked up to like over 200 pounds from like 175 or something like that. And one thing I was doing though is I wasn't being super active outside of the gym. I wasn't doing the trail running, but now these are habits that I've started to develop. And
Right.
I'm thinking to myself, well, maybe I can like, I love food. I love eating. I'm a big food guy. I think a lot of guys are. And if I can eat, maybe like a little bit over the top on the calorie surplus, but just keep my activity high so that my calorie surplus ends up being not too crazy. Maybe there's a way I can balance that. I guess that would just come with tracking your weight and making sure you're not gaining too much, right? Just look at the numbers.
Yeah, everything comes down to tracking weighing. But I will tell you, at my peak, of my physique and my strength, I hate cardio, man. I mean, like gym cardio. I think so.
Oh, dude.
This concept. Go do something else. Get out of the gym. But
Mm.
I was single for the first time in 20 years ish, right? So I didn't want to, I was single in mid 40s with a body of, like a body above every other man in the universe. So, at my age, right?
Yeah.
So, like, if I could, I had two options at that point. I can go over to the wine bar and have like all the nurses and stuff, like all the cougars would attack, right? And it sounds silly, but that's kind of the way it is at that age. But my other option was go out on the weekend and do something healthier. And I would train during the week, and I would get up at like 6 in the morning on a Saturday, and I would go hike all day long. And then on Sunday, I would do a smaller hike of like 2 hours. So I had, man, I would like Saturday and Sunday, I'd be a beer drinking, pizza eating son of a gun. And I would come in like 2 or 3 pounds heavier on Monday. And then by Friday, it was down again.
Yeah.
It was a good life. And that activity you get from hiking, being in the sun, uh, you know, I just absolutely love it. I can't speak enough about, the value of that balance.
Hmm. No, I 100% agree. I made a post about that. Like gym cardio, I just stay away from. If you can go outside, get sun, take your shirt off, like go out in nature, it's so much better. Like I don't want to be in the gym 6 days a week. I don't want to go to the gym just to walk on the Stairmaster when you could walk on a mountain or like walk in a trail. I don't
Yeah.
know.
People ask me a lot, like, why do you do trail running? Because, like lifting, it only takes, like 5 hours a week or whatever. But in the time I'm not in the gym, I love to be outside, man. I mean, I love to explore adventure and
Yeah.
uh, just see what's going on.
Hell yeah, man. One thing we're approaching the hour mark here, but I want to get into one other thing. You definitely post some stuff that I totally agree with. You posted that pyramid with like the antidepressants at the top. And
Right.
I was like, ooh, you're not afraid to kind of like call out some of that shit. And that's just in general, I feel like there's a lot of like the whole like wokeness thing that's going on. I see that creeping into the health and fitness space quite a bit. I've seen stuff like one thing in particular. I'm not going to say who posted it, but
Right.
They're a doctor, science-based guy in the field, and they said something like, being obese isn't your fault, but getting healthy, or something like that. It was like, being obese isn't your fault, but getting healthy is. And I'm like, you
Yeah, like, I don't know. You can tell me how you feel, and everybody has a right to their own opinion. But I will say, we have gotten so woke and so touchy feely where we have lost, we have kind of started to push out a very valuable aspect of personal change, and that is mental strength and challenging yourself and challenging others.
Mhm.
Because I'm not trying to be an asshole, and I'm not trying to be insensitive, and I'm not that way with my clients.
Yeah.
But some people need to hear, shut the fuck up and take another step. You
Mhm.
The little known fact, when I was in the military, in a AIT unit, I got to be a de facto drill sergeant over what we called the broke dicks. And I'm sure the woke people, modern culture will love that. But people had injuries, that were either had to wait to heal up, or might be transitioning out of the service. And I was around drill sergeants, and I was a de facto platoon sergeant, for quite a while, for a couple of years. And my whole, in that world, it was shut up and move, shut up and get it done.
Yeah.
Um, and I think we've lost a little bit of that. You know, we've lost an amount of that that's healthy. Uh,
Mhm.
you know, this is monologue. I say to myself, like, fat ass, get moving. Stop fucking eating shit, fat ass. That's stuff I tell myself. And I think it's kind of being pushed out, man. It's like, some of this is our fault. We make decisions every day about stuff. I mean, a lot of this is our fault, right?
100%.
I mean, no one's, you know, like yesterday I posted meat is expensive. Bullshit, man. I mean, come on. People are Grubhubbing. Like, people, I used to work with people that were like, where do they get all this money to spend on Grubhub every day? Like, legit, like, where were you? And they have $5 coffees every day. And like, I don't want
Oh
to
yeah.
hear that crowd that meat's expensive. Like, you have a choice. You have a choice. And you can do what you want, man. Life is hard, right? Life is hard, and I'm not judging anybody. Life is hard, and if that's your way of dealing with it, go ahead. I mean, this is a hard journey, and it's an unforgiving journey. But if you are serious about change, then you need to have. I mean, lifestyle change is hard, and you need to really get your shit together.
Let's fucking go. Wicked. That's a good place to wrap this up. No, I feel the same way, man. Like, I talk a lot. I talk with some guys that are in like the masculine development space, and the whole there's a bit of a demonized. I don't know how you feel about this, but I think there's a demonization of masculinity in general, and just like, we're kind of like making people weak, and we're losing, like you said, like the testicular fortitude. And I know there's a balance. Like, I don't think we should be like, fucking blah, 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 like the go soldier. Like, it gets to a point where it's too extreme, but we're way over on the other side of the spectrum right now.
Yeah, man. In my day, like we would bust each other's balls and then get together at the end of the day to hang
Yeah.
out. I mean, we were literally, like, when I was in fifth grade, we would run around smacking each other in the nuts to the point where the principal had to pull us in the
Yeah.
office. But that's just kind of how it was. And was some of it bullying? Yeah. I mean, some of it was, but made us stronger in general. Some people, didn't always work out well for, but I don't know. There's a degree of that that's healthy. And if it starts internally, like, I'm busting my own balls, like, hey, fat ass, things I say internally, I can't say publicly. Things I tell myself, it's not a kinder, gentler way of saying it, right?
Mhm.
I don't
Well,
know.
I actually worked in a warehouse this is when I was probably, I don't know, 19 years old, and I was a skinny, Like I had a lot of stupid ideas in my head, and there's these two older guys that I looked up to, and they definitely busted my balls, like almost like to the point where I felt like I was being bullied a little bit, but it was like this, this camaraderie where they were actually trying to help me out. And I feel like, yeah, like you talk about, it's like at the time I was a little bit like sensitive to it, but then they actually woke me up to a lot of things. And I actually like am grateful because they got me involved in like, they training or, eating better. Like they busted my balls, but it was good for me. And I feel like we don't get enough of that in culture.
Yeah, I was going to say like some of it's just helping equip you to survive, and that used to be a good thing. I mean, back in the days of the Wild Wild West, you didn't get a hug if you couldn't eat. You need to get your ass out and and make something happen. So it was a part of our survival, you know. And I don't know. There are some good things about it, but definitely nuance.
Cool, man. It sounds like your dogs want to hang out with you, so I should probably let you go.
My wife was just came up there. So hey, but you've been interesting. You've been interviewing some interesting people, and I haven't had a chance to check out your podcast. But let me throw a question your way. Who is the most interesting person you've talked to yet?
Like interesting. Oh man, I'm trying to think.
Unexpected, different.
Like Jack Donovan's a very interesting character. I haven't had anyone like way out there.
No, I can imagine. Like Jeffrey Verity Schofield, I've developed a relationship with him.
Yeah, I like Jeffrey a lot, man. Like his content. When I first saw it, I was like, dude, this guy's just laying it out. And I loved how like his stuff is very just straight to the point. He's not flashy with his content, but it's great. It's entertaining, and he doesn't. It's just like non bullshit, straight to the point.
It's funny, man, because I like Bald Omni Man. I didn't even know who he was till like 3 months ago. And no disrespect, I just didn't have time to pay attention. And I noticed like he had commented on my videos a while back. I didn't even know who he was. I probably said something stupid to him.
No, Bald Omni Man. Now that I think about it, he's a pretty interesting character. Just with this whole like his anime references and his I don't know, just his whole vibe. Like he does these bro talks where he gets into more than just fitness and kind of like gives younger guys advice and stuff like that. And I feel like it's actually that's actually something that I think about. If you're a dude who is in fitness and you've helped a ton of young men achieve something with their bodies, they might come to you and ask you questions about life. Like, what should I do about this relationship thing? Like someone like you who has been doing this for a long time, and and we're talking about, in culture lacking masculine guidance or lacking that camaraderie. And then,
right.
I personally, I feel like 100%, like a lot of guys are starved of masculine guidance. So maybe there's like a temptation to not just talk about fitness anymore. Like for me, like I don't just want to talk about fitness. I want to talk about, mental and spiritual fitness or relationships or like just masculine development in general.
No, I'm right there with you. I mean, it's to the point where I've considered, starting a separate channel just for like mental strength. Where I come from, it's this is much bigger than lifting. It's much bigger than lifting. Like my dad was in Vietnam. He served 2 tours in Vietnam. He was a very violent alcoholic. He passed away recently, but we ended up with a good relationship. But when I was young, he used to take me to the bars and take me to his girlfriend's houses. And at one point, he was drunk. He tried to get me to kill him with a shotgun.
Holy fuck.
Well, it's just, that's the life I grew up in, way before, it's popular to be, ghetto or, trash or whatever like it is now. We just kind of were in that environment. I didn't have a dad showing me how to do anything. My mom was always at work. No one showing me how to change the oil. No one showing me how to change a light bulb. No one showing me how to balance a checkbook. No one telling me how to study for school. I was just a fucking life form, planet on Earth trying to figure shit out.
Yeah.
And man, did I get in a lot of trouble, make a lot of stupid decisions, trying to figure that shit out. But helping other men now, younger guys, that's 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 something we need more of. We need more men, helping to equip some of these younger guys.
Well, that's like how I'm approaching it is I'm not some dude who has all the answers. I'm actually the guy who lacked guidance, like in the same, not to the same degree necessarily, but in a different way, I'm just a life form existing. Like where do I turn, left or right? Like how do I actually, you know, handle this relationship issue or
Right, right.
yeah. And like I had a present father, but like there are things you're not taught. And like some men, I genuinely believe like there is like a, either an intentional or just like a cultural evolutionary reason why masculinity is being demonized or kind of pushed out, like traditional masculine values.
Right.
But it is affecting young men today. Like you think about just even things like um we're encouraged to be degenerate, just watching porn all day and fucking doing this and that, and like even like working out is being kind of like demonized. Like if you like, I know like it's way on the woke end of the spectrum, but if working out turns you into a right-wing extremist or shit like that.
Oh no, my wife's sneaking by. There's a lot of that nonsense out there. Like if you X equals Y, a lot of black and white thinking, or X equals Y thinking. If you do this, this is your reason, right? So like if you lift, this is your reason. If you're in this, that, or the other thing, you're insecure or whatever. It's always oversimplified and reduced, this level of reductionism that's ridiculous. Because we're complex people and life is hard. And, we should be encouraged to do things that challenge us. That's what's the meaning of life? To give life meaning, man. I mean, you want to know who you are in life, go do some things that you've never done. Try some new things, challenges, new cuisine, new places. For me, that's what life has been all about. Trying new things, going new places, just diving in. And life is way too complicated to get into. If you lift, you're this. If you do this, you're this.
Yeah,
That's thinking. That's idiot thinking, right?
absolutely. No, I would be super stoked if you started getting into like different topics on your YouTube channel. I know there's probably a fear of you kind of like alienating your audience, or maybe like, if you get in, I try to keep it like I do every once in a while talk about politics, but for me, it's like, I'm just trying to talk about like personal development, but we kind of live in an era where even that has become political,
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I will say this. I have been on YouTube a long time, and I've been in the content management game a long time. I've helped Muscle and Brawn, Muscle and Strength, and Tiger Fitness grow their brands. And tossing out the word brand, we're all a brand. And that's not necessarily a negative, selly type of thing, right?
Yeah.
But you need to understand who you are in your space. And if I started out giving lifting and life advice in this space, then I could give lifting and life advice on this channel. But in this channel, in this space, I'm lifting. If I want to start another channel, then I'll start it on another subject. But if someone like you starts with fitness and,
Yeah, I see what you're saying, like brand consistency. Like, you don't want to all of a sudden be like, and now we're a personal development channel. Yeah, I get what, yeah.
yeah, people don't come to me for, relationship advice. So if I start giving it, it's like Elliot Hulse, who he is, like the old school.
Yeah. Yep.
He went completely in a different direction.
Yeah, he's actually been on the podcast.
like you, yeah, and I'm not down talking him, but if you want to get into that space, you should probably do it on a separate channel, right?
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
Because if not, you're going to alienate the people that want your help on what you're doing. If that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Like you're the guy that people go to for training advice. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I got my own other people I go to for relationship advice or whatever. But yeah, no, it'd be interesting if you started like a different YouTube channel. I know some guys have done that and it's cool. I'm just trying to be like, for me, like, I'm just trying to be like open and honest and talk about all the things I'm into so that I don't pigeonhole myself necessarily.
Right.
But
Well, a broader, a broader podcast, like I'd be more likely to listen to a broader podcast on more subjects than just lifting, because I listen to lifting stuff all day long.
yeah. And after a while, it's like, you talk about overcomplication and overthinking about training. And I think there might be a temptation to over consume training content. It's like, do you really need to know anymore? Like, you probably know enough. You just need to go to the gym and do it. So maybe there could be like just too much of like consuming the same kind of information. So it's good to kind of like,
Yeah, like say you're a single dude, man. You're insecure and you're trying to figure out how to find Miss Right or whatever your deal is. You can overthink shit. At some point you just got to relax and be yourself. And so, all right, before we go, I want to share with you just one thing that drives me crazy in the lifting space.
Yeah, absolutely. Please do.
That is channels that call themselves fitness when they're a lifting channel. All right. So let me explain. Like, you got a dude that lifts, but like it's easy to lift and not be fit. Okay. So I do not always automatically equate lifting to fitness. Like fitness is more well-rounded, in my opinion. Like someone can encourage a more fit lifestyle, right? But like guys that call themselves a fitness channel that have never spent any time doing any degree of conditioning, why not just call yourself a lifting channel?
That's a good point. That's a good point. Like the actual like health aspect of it too. There's a lot of people that lift that aren't necessarily healthy or health focused or fitness focused. That makes sense.
Yeah, I'm just taking a shot at a couple channels that have fitness in their title that don't.
Maybe we'll wrap this up here and we'll talk off air for like 2 minutes here. If you could just let everybody know where they can find you, that'd be great.
Yeah, on YouTube, just search Massive Iron, and everywhere else, Ben the Barman, Ben the Barman, Ben the Barman. Everybody thinks that's deadlift related. It's actually a bench press cue.
Cool, man. Well, I really appreciate you taking the time to speak with me today.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Anytime.
Yeah, have a good rest of your day.
You too.